Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge, Honorable Deputy Governor, Mr. Perrin Bradley, invited guests, officials, civil servants, and representatives from the private sector. Good afternoon and welcome to our event by the Internal Audit Department from Insight to Foresight. I apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties. We are trying to stream the event as well so that others can benefit from our fruitful discussions and sharings this afternoon. So I invite you now to stand for the national song. Standing, I now invite Ms. Jonisha Johnson, our Executive Secretary, to open us with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us out to the panel discussion this afternoon, where we learn more about the importance of internal audit. Lord, I pray that you be with today's proceedings, help everything to go smoothly, Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us out this afternoon to this panel discussion, Lord, where we learn more about internal audit. I pray that you'll help everything to run smoothly, Lord. Be with those who are on their way. Thank you for everyone who's here. These and other mercies I ask in Jesus' most precious and holy name I pray. Amen.
Ms. Giselle Hodge, the Deputy Director, Internal Audit, will now open us with some welcome remarks.
I adopt the protocol already established. Good afternoon. I warmly welcome each of you today in today's event in observance of Internal Audit Month, which is celebrated annually by internal audit professionals around the world. It is a pleasure to gather here today to mark a milestone event, not only for the internal audit profession, but also for the Internal Audit Department of Anguilla, as we celebrate 25 years since the department was formally established. Today we have come together to explore the evolving role of the internal audit function and why it matters now more than ever. As we begin, I would like to take a moment to reflect on the purpose of internal auditing as outlined in Domain 1 of the 2024 Global Internal Audit Standards issued by the Institute of Internal Auditors, IIA. And I quote, Internal auditing strengthens the organization's ability to create, protect, and sustain value by providing the governing body and management with independent, risk-based, and objective assurance, advice, insight, and foresight. Internal auditing enhances the organization's successful achievement of its objectives, governance, risk management and control processes, decision-making and oversight, reputation and credibility with its stakeholders, and the ability to serve the interests of the public. Internal auditing is most effective when it is performed by competent professionals in conformance with the global internal audit standards which are set in the public interest. The internal audit function is independently positioned with direct accountability to the governing body, and internal auditors are free from undue influence and committed to making objective assessments. End quote. Traditionally, internal audit has focused on hindsight, looking back to identify what went wrong. Over time, internal audit matured into a function that also provides insight, clarity into what is currently happening and why. But today, more than ever, internal audit is called upon to deliver foresight, to anticipate emerging risks, advise on better ways forward, and contribute to smarter decisions and sustainable outcomes. That evolution from hindsight to insight and foresight is not simply a shift in method. It is a shift to a growth mindset characterized by adaptability, flexibility, and confidence and innovation. And this reflects our continued journey to be more productive, more proactive, more strategic, and more trusted as a partner in the public service and a contributor to institutional resilience. So whether you are here as a leader, as a manager, a budding professional, or just learning about internal audit for the first time, we invite you to explore this theme with us as we challenge perceptions, learn from the past, and look ahead for the future of internal auditing in Anguilla and beyond. Once again, welcome and thank you for being here. And now I welcome Honorable Premier Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge to deliver brief remarks on strengthening public trust through accountability.
Adopting the protocol already established, good afternoon. I am honored to join you today in observance of Internal Audit Month and to mark 25 years of the internal audit function within the government of Anguilla. This month's theme, From Insight to Foresight, captures the evolution of internal audit from simply a compliance checker to a strategic partner in good governance and continuous improvement. Internal audit plays a critical role in not only reporting on the past, but helping to participate and prepare for the future. Let us take a moment to reflect on the cornerstones of democratic governance: accountability, transparency, and trust. Accountability demands that government officials and public officers exercise their powers and duties in the public interest, and that public resources are managed with care, discipline, and transparency. When accountability is strong, public trust tends to follow. But trust is not automatic. It must be earned, protected, and reaffirmed. And this is where transparency comes in. Transparency must exist in the way we report, in how decisions are made, how resources are allocated, and how outcomes are achieved and measured. When citizens are informed and engaged, the connection between people and public institutions is strengthened. Transparency is not just limited to access to information. It is about clarity, relevance, honesty, and timely communication. When we can see how and why decisions are made, it fosters confidence in the public sector and empowers a more informed and participatory society. As Premier and Minister of Finance, I am acutely aware of the importance of sound financial management in maintaining public confidence. Every dollar entrusted to the government must be used prudently to achieve objectives set out in the public interest. Effective public financial management ensures that national priorities are properly resourced and that funds are directed where they are needed most. Internal audit provides an independent and objective assurance on the adequacy and effectiveness of our systems, functions, and processes. It is not a function that merely looks back. It also looks ahead and helps government to anticipate emerging risks and respond to them strategically. The government of Anguilla remains firmly committed to strengthening the institutional frameworks that support accountability and good governance. We recognize that the robust mechanisms we establish today will pave the way for future generations. And this includes supporting the Internal Audit Department in its transformation to provide more value through its assurance and advisory services, and as a driver of continuous improvement throughout the public service. Let me take this opportunity to commend the Internal Audit Department for its dedication to being a trusted partner in good governance. Your commitment to delivering reliable, high-quality assurance and advisory services empowers our accounting officers and Parliament to make informed decisions grounded in innovation and excellence. Your work extends beyond compliance. It nurtures a culture of accountability and proactive risk management, allowing our government to flourish. In conclusion, let us continue to embrace the principles of accountability, transparency, and sound financial management, bolstered by a strong internal audit function. Together, we can build a more resilient and trustworthy governance framework that not only meets the expectations of today, but prepares us for the challenges tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier, for your remarks in underscoring the importance of public trust in accountability and good governance. And now I welcome the Honorable Deputy Governor, Mr. Perrin Bradley, to provide remarks on operationalizing good governance in the public sector.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hodge. And adopting the protocol established. Ms. Fleming said I had 5 minutes to talk about good governance in the public sector. And I got so carried away with my speech preparation that my remarks run to about 15 minutes. But I'm going to make a deal with you guys. If you listen attentively, give me a big round of applause when I'm finished, I can get it done in about 4 minutes. Is that a deal? All right, there we go. But seriously, I just want to thank all of you who are here this afternoon and those of you joining online. It is a real pleasure for me to be a part of this presentation this afternoon. And I do thank Ms. Fleming and the Internal Audit Department for having me here. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and the fact that you're here is a testament to how we view the Internal Audit Department and its function. So again, congratulations to you, Ms. Fleming and your team. I think 25 years of anything is a long time. Now, in terms of good governance, what we're really talking about is how things actually work, how decisions are made, how we are held accountable, and how we deliver for the public service. And strong governance structures is the background. They help to ensure that we are operating not on guesswork or on personalities, but on clear rules, systems, and values. In Anguilla, we're continuing to strengthen those systems to ensure that decisions are transparent, consistent, and in the public interest. But good governance is not just about systems, it is also about people. It's about leadership, ethical leadership that sets the tone. When senior leaders act with integrity, others tend to follow. Culture is built not from the top. Sorry, it is built from the top, but reinforced by everyday actions. And if you want a culture of accountability and respect in the public service, that has to start with how we lead and how we treat each other. Of course, systems and leadership also need safeguards, and that is where internal controls and risk management come in. There are practical tools which help us to catch problems early, respond to emerging risks, and make smarter use of limited resources. They're not there to slow us down, but to help us operate with confidence, knowing we've thought things through and we are protecting the public interest. And this is where the internal audit comes in, not just to check that we're doing the right thing, but to help us think ahead. Audit teams provide independent, objective feedback, and it's critical, but they also bring insight, helping us to learn, improve, and sometimes even to innovate. It is not just about accountability. It is about adding value, helping us to become more forward-thinking and performance-driven. At the end of the day, good governance isn't about one person or one person's job or responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility, from the most senior officials to the most junior recruits. We all have a part to play in building a public service that the people of Anguilla can rely on, and one that lives by these values every single day. So in closing, I want to thank the internal audit team for bringing us together. These conversations are very important and they do matter. The work is helping a more resilient and responsive public service. Let us keep pushing forward with integrity, with purpose, and with the public at the center of all that we do. Thank you very much. Was that 4 minutes? That's not loud enough, man. That's not loud enough. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Governor, for those encouraging words as we aim to deliver high-quality internal audit services, as well as to model ethical leadership and our shared responsibility in good governance. And now I'd like to welcome Ms. Delta Hodge, Internal Auditor, to provide a presentation on our 25-year journey, the history of the Government of Anguilla's Internal Audit Department.
Government officials, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, good afternoon. Today we gather to celebrate a remarkable journey, 25 years of the Internal Audit Department as a dedicated assurance provider within the Government of Anguilla. As we reflect on this milestone, we pay tribute to a department that has grown from humble beginnings into a trusted advisor and strategic partner in the public service. The story of internal audit in the Anguilla Public Service began not as a standalone department, but as a modest treasury function, overseen by the Chief Auditor and external auditors from the United Kingdom National Audit Office. Initially, the focus was on substantive testing to support the annual financial statement audit for the Government of Anguilla accounts and performing probity checks. But as our governance system matured and the needs of public accountability became more complex, so too did the vision for internal audit. In time, the function was transferred into a small unit within the Ministry of Finance, reporting to the Permanent Secretary of Finance. This marks the beginning of a transition from transaction-level checks to a more structured framework for assurance. The true turning point came in the year 2000 when a recommendation from the British government led to the establishment of a dedicated internal audit department with a broader mandate covering all government ministries and departments. That recommendation laid the foundation for the department we know today. This new department was spearheaded by Heather Ritchie, the internal audit manager, alongside Paul Heppel, an audit advisor from the UK Department of International Development, DFID. At its inception, the team comprised 4 other staff members: internal auditors Carolyn Richardson, Clara Richardson, and Houston Richardson, along with the internal audit assistant, Delta Hodge. A defining moment was the creation of the first internal audit charter, which established the department's mission, scope, and authority, creating the backing for the department to fulfill its mandate. To ensure objective oversight, an audit committee was also formed, chaired by the Deputy Governor, a structure that remains in place today to safeguard independence and support strategic alignment. As the department evolved, it was guided by several dynamic leaders. Heather Ritchie served as the first director of internal audit from 2002 to 2005, laying the essential groundwork for the department. She played a critical role in crafting the founding internal audit charter. She was succeeded by Kathleen Rogers, who served from 2006 to 2007, and then by Andrew Gomes, who led the department from 2007 to 2024. Each of these directors made some significant contributions, steering the department from a compliance-centric focus, primarily centered on financial audits and probatory checks, to a risk-based methodology. As of May 2024, Tamika Fleming has taken the helm, ushering in a new era marked by proactive and strategic vision, one that aligns with the theme of today's celebration, from insight to foresight. Today, the department provides assurance and advisory services that focus on governance, risk management, and internal controls. Additionally, the internal audit department still maintains a long-standing relationship with external auditors and the chief auditor, conducting substantive testing on their behalf. Throughout the department's existence, the government of Anguilla has embraced significant technological advancements, including the implementation of sophisticated information technology IT systems like SmartStream for government accounting, SIGTAS and MTS for tax administration, and Asicuda for customs administration. These innovations have replaced outdated manual processes such as ledgers, vote books, and receipt books, streamlining operations and enhancing efficiency. Recent years have seen further digitization of services and the introduction of online payment processing, which, while presenting new risks, also offer promising opportunities for the government. Over the 25 years of existence, the Internal Audit Department has grown into a trusted advisor and strategic partner within the Anguilla Public Service, earning respect for its objectivity and recognized for its crucial role in bolstering internal controls, safeguarding assets, and enhancing resource management and revenue optimization. With support from stakeholders, the Internal Audit Department is poised to be the foundation of good governance in Anguilla, committed to fostering transparency and accountability in public service. To those who lay the foundation, to those who carry the mantle, and to those now shaping the future, we thank you.
Thank you, Delta, for that overview of the historical journey of the Internal Audit Department. In preparation for this event, we've had the pleasure to go back into archives. Our archives go all the way back. We see the DFID project, how that played out and what it entailed, and building out the resourcing and the manual and all of that. And we have to be grateful for the foresight back then for all those who were involved. So thank you for highlighting that history. So now I welcome the Director Internal Audit, Ms. Fleming, to deliver her presentation on 2030 Vision, Transforming the Internal Audit Department for Greater Impact.
Good afternoon once again. And before I begin, I would just like to make a presentation this afternoon. Before I begin, I must take a moment to recognize an extraordinary woman among us, a beacon of resilience and knowledge. This individual has devoted her life to public service, becoming a cornerstone of institutional wisdom for the Internal Audit Department. Her passion for her work resonates in every engagement she undertakes, illuminating the path for others. Driven by her curiosity, she excels in dissecting complex problems and untangling intricate systems with finesse. Her unwavering commitment to objectivity ensures that her evaluations are not just fair, but insightful and impactful. Known for her advice and her nurturing mentorship, she evolves as the preferred source of guidance for navigating complex government processes and systems. Her hands-on approach cultivates a spirit of collaboration, empowering her colleagues to enhance their skills and build their confidence. In every sense, her dedication and expertise render her an invaluable asset to her team. I would like to invite Ms. Delta Hodge to come and accept a token of appreciation from the department. We have a plaque that reads, "In recognition of your unwavering dedication, commitment, and over 25 years of distinguished service as the longest-serving member of the Internal Audit Department. We appreciate you and we pray God's continued blessings over your life and service." And one colleague said yesterday, "Give people them flowers when they're alive." So we have flowers as well. Thank you. Another round of applause for Delta. Thank you. So lucky for us, we have Delta on our team, and she has been on our team from the beginning. She has been there from the inception, so we gain a lot of insight from her, and we are now charting the path forward. So this afternoon, I want to share a bit about our 2020 vision in terms of where we are transforming the Internal Audit Department for greater impact within the public service. As we celebrate Internal Audit Month and 25 years of the Internal Audit Department, we are positioning the department to meet the evolving needs of the government as through transformation grounded in purpose, strategy, and of course, our people. So why do we exist? In this presentation, I will share some insight on our mission and our vision. Our mission is basically what defines our function, while our vision defines our ambition. And the mission of the Internal Audit Department is to add value to and improve the operations of the government departments, ministries, and subsidiaries by measuring and evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of managerial and financial controls, risk management, asset management, and governance processes. So that is our function. We support the government of Anguilla through 3 core services: assurance services, and this basically involves providing objective assessments to provide that level of confidence to accounting officers on governance, risk management, and control processes. And we also provide assurance over compliance with laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and over performance. Advisory services is a next service that we provide, and this is focused on providing advice on the design and implementation of new policies, procedures, or systems, and it is also focused on training on relevant areas to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of government operations, and also on facilitating risk management processes, control self-assessments, and also providing guidance on the design and redesign of internal controls. It is important to note, though, that when we provide advisory services, we maintain a level of independence and objectivity by not taking on management responsibilities or decision making in those processes. So we have to make sure that our roles remain defined because we provide objective assurance and advisory services. Our third service that we provide is external audit substantive testing. As Delta would have pointed out in her presentation, that's where the function evolved or began. So it was essentially a function that would look at financial transactions and perform the substantive testing to support the external audit reporting on the financial statements and accounts of the government. But so we continue to still provide that service and support to the external auditors. Through our assurance work, we evaluate governance, risk management, and controls. But through our advisory work, we help to shape better policies, programs, and systems. And through training and facilitation, we build capacity across the public service. Together, these services actually enable us to not only identify areas for improvement as per our mission, but also to achieve our role in serving the public interest. Now let's consider our vision, which defines our ambition. Where are we going? Or where do we aspire to go? And the 2030 vision for the Internal Audit Department is to be a trusted partner in good governance, delivering reliable, high-quality assurance and advisory services, and empowering informed decision-making through innovation, excellence, and a stakeholder-focused internal audit function. So, now I will expound a bit on how we are transforming the internal audit function for greater impact within the Anguilla Public Service by drilling down into the strategic values and priorities. To be a trusted partner in good governance, what does that mean? It means that we are fostering stronger relationships with our internal and external stakeholders, and we are also developing a culture of transparency and accountability across the service. We are focused on delivering reliable, high-quality internal audit services, and that means that we are value-driven. We are focusing on value in terms of our engagements. We want to have actionable recommendations coming out of our reports and our findings. And we also want to enhance our capacity and capability of the team to provide these services so that our services could be credible and trusted. Our work should empower informed decision-making. After all, that's what it's about, governance. and decision making. So this is delivered through clear, impactful, and insightful audit reports and ongoing communication with our stakeholders, and also enhanced alignment with the strategic priorities of the organization. All our work must be driven by innovation and excellence. That is the aim. This involves the integrated use of data and technology to achieve greater audit efficiency, insight, and responsiveness to evolving risks. And the ultimate goal is to become a proactive, not reactive, proactive internal audit function where our audit work is forward-looking, it is risk-based, it is aligned with the strategies of the organization, and it focuses on the emerging threats and any strategic shifts. So we need to be auditing at the speed of risk. Last but not least, a key transformational goal is to become a stakeholder-focused internal audit function. We hope to achieve this through more robust stakeholder engagement and visibility. I'm sure you've seen a lot more of the internal audit department recently, so that is intentional. Throughout the Anguilla Public Service, we hope that our work will also promote a culture, as Honorable Premier pointed out, a culture of continuous improvement. We want to continue to adapt based on lessons learned and our audit insights and foresight. We anticipate that we would have developed that culture within the public service. We have therefore condensed our transformational strategy into 5 core values and priority areas, and they can most effectively be illustrated in the form of a pyramid because they build on the other to ultimately achieve the goals, the desired goal of the organization. They are people at the base, partnership, innovation, quality, impact. As we look to the future, we are guided by 5 key messages. Empowering teams, embracing performance. At the core of our work are our people who drive public service. We empower our teams through collaboration, training, advice, fostering a culture of continuous improvement, as I said, efficiency and effectiveness. Our next key message is partnering for transparency and accountability. We want to build trust in the public service. Our next key theme, our message, is innovating for a resilient public service, delivering excellence, driving value, and proactively managing risk, achieving key strategies. So these are our key messages. Our transformation is grounded in 5 core values, and these values are not just words. They shape our work culture and our daily decisions. Our people, fostering a culture of collaboration, respect, and continuous growth within the internal audit team to effectively achieve the internal audit function's mandate. In terms of partnership, we are building trust and working closely with senior and middle management across central government and other government entities to continuously improve public service delivery. We are leveraging innovation, using innovative methods to ensure that the internal audit function remains relevant, agile, and forward-thinking. And quality, we are delivering high-quality internal audit services and reliable assurance while reinforcing the internal audit function's credibility and effectiveness. Finally, impact. We're adding value by putting forward actionable recommendations to improve governance, risk management, and control processes and operational efficiency and effectiveness across the public service. So, in a nutshell, our priorities are focused on people, and with people, we're building competency within our team, also looking at how we can restructured the department for greater delivery of services, and looking to how we will have to recruit additional specialized skills, because of course the needs of the organization are continually evolving. So areas like IT, we will have to look into sourcing more resources in that regard. Partnership, we are continually building strategic alliances with other internal audit professionals in Anguilla and without Anguilla. We have connections with several organizations. CARTAC, CAROSI, that's the Caribbean Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, and that is a grouping of external auditors, Supreme Audit Institutions, accountant generals across the Caribbean. So we liaise with them for advice, expertise. We have the Government Internal Audit Agency out of the United Kingdom, and we have a UK Overseas Territories Working Group, and of course our external auditors from the Wales Audit Office, who we work with to gain expertise, as I say, share resources, gain insight. So we are partnering for greater impact. Innovation does not necessarily mean using the most advanced technology or IT systems. It means being creative and making the optimum use of the available resources to achieve the desired results. And we are capitalizing on innovation in terms of the way that we do our work, and we are also looking at how we can support the government of Anguilla in the digitization journey. Quality. Our work is grounded on the standards and best practices, and we also seek to promote high standards and best practices within government departments and ministries across the island. Impact is our ultimate goal, and we attain to become a proactive, risk-based function that champions change management, as well as being trailblazers, charting new courses, and becoming that strategic, trusted partner in good governance. So that is, in a nutshell, what we are trying to achieve. To conclude, internal audit is no longer just about hindsight. It is about insight and foresight. Together, we are building a more resilient and accountable public service. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming, for your presentation. Just some background. I've been with the department for 7 months now, and it has been hit the ground running. We've really been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get up to date in terms of the new standards that became effective January 2025, and that is the Global Internal Audit Standards, which is issued by the Institute of Internal Auditors. So you've heard from us, and now we want to hear from you. What comes to mind when you think of internal audit? So now we can take out the cell phones, smartphones, and scan the QR code, or if you're having any difficulty with that, you can visit Menti, that's MENTI.com, and you'll enter the code 45827523. Okay, so I'll give you a minute or two to attempt that activity. Okay, like resilient internal auditors, we adapt. If you're comfortable with sharing vocally, I welcome your contributions. Transparency, okay, thank you. Any other contributions?
I wrote efficacy and efficiency
Yes.
along with effectiveness and efficiency.
Mhm.
Was considered efficacy.
Okay, thank you. Efficacy. Yes. Any other contributions? Accountability, yes. Okay. So those are on the positive side. We want a balanced perspective. I'm not trying to skew you. Okay, we have a raised hand at back. Compliance, okay, yes. Thank you. Any other contributions? Yes. Finance, yes. Thank you. Any others? Scrutiny, okay. Okay, yes. Thank you. Any other contributions? Some nouns? Yeah. Okay. So in 2024, the Internal Audit Foundation would have conducted a survey. And the most popular terminology when it comes to internal audit, compliance focus, then independent, and police. Police. Police investigation, yeah, objective, trusted advisor, internal consultant, respected, collaborative, problem solver, valued, change agents, boring, good communicators, strategic, holistic thinkers, curious learners, dynamic, and technology and data experts. So we see that there's a ranging list of perceptions. Most of them were positive, but we do encounter in the course of our work some misconceptions. So persons might think internal audit come here to find a fault. That's not our job. We're here as your partners to assist you with achieving your strategic objectives and goals. So definitely not looking for fault intentionally, but based on our internal audit process, we have to determine our evaluating criteria. What should be happening ideally? And then we look at the condition, what is actually happening, and we drill down through the root cause, and then we determine, okay, this is why it's happening, and from there we would proceed to provide you with practical and actionable recommendations. So just debunking that myth. So now we have another exercise. What type of internal auditor are you? So we're reflecting now personally, and I'll take you through an exercise which includes 4 questions, and what you'll do is note the option that you would have selected, that is 1, 2, or 3 for each question, and then at the end we will score up your options. So let's say for the 4 questions you chose 1, then your score would be 4. And then based on your score, we determine what type of internal auditor you are. Okay? So the first question, I feel most satisfied when 1. everything is in order and compliant. 2, I've helped someone solve a problem. 3, I've introduced a fresh idea that works. Question 2. When facing a problem, I tend to 1, look at the rules or policies for guidance. 2, look at both the issue and the context before deciding. 3, ask what if we tried something new. Okay, next question. If I had to review how a department works, I would 1, check if they are following the guidelines correctly. 2, look at what works and what needs improving. 3, think about how new tools or solutions could make it even better. Okay, question 4. I believe internal audit is most valuable when 1, it ensures people follow the correct procedures. 2, helps departments fix issues and run better. 3, finds new risks and help organizations plan ahead. I just want to state that there's no right or wrong answers. So don't try to get the right answer because there's none. So based on those 4 questions, what's your score? These questions would have been formed based on the exercise developed by the Internal Audit Foundation in 2024 research, the 3 personas. So qualitative research from the Vision 2035 survey reveals 3 distinct attitudes regarding the future of the profession. So let's go through the scores now. If you scored anywhere between 4 to 6, you're a purist. Any purists in the room? Okay. The purists insist on adherence to traditional rules. If you scored 7 to 9, practicalists advocates for or adheres to what is practical. Any practicalists in here? Yeah? Nice. So you're in the middle. A good mixture of both, not the extreme. Okay. So, and anyone scored 10 to 12? Proactive? Proactive? Okay. Okay. So that basically seems to align with what the survey came up with, this international survey. Most persons seem to fit into that middle ground, the practicalist, and then proactive is now becoming more popular, and they foresee that within the next 10 years that it would have a little more proactive in there. And the proactive is embraces new ideas and drives change that creates value. So thank you for participating in this exercise, and now I'll shift over to the more than a job, the internal audit profession presentation. Our internal audit profession boasts a rich legacy of resilience, adaptability, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. This is a quote by Anthony Palagides, CIA, CPA, CGMA, CITP. He's the president and CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors, IIA. So in our walk, you'll hear us mentioning IIA a lot because that organization is the standard setter for this profession. So I'll quickly take you through the evolution of internal audit function since the 1940s. This is just high level and very condensed evolution. So in the before the 1940s, the internal auditing profession was essentially a clerical function, and auditors were needed to check accounting records after transactions in order to locate errors. The major objective was to discover fraud. Since 1941, the IIA has been the global leader in advancing the internal audit function. The internal audit then developed as an extension of external audit role in testing the reliability of accounting records that contribute to published financial statements. And then there was the move to the internal check era. So internal checks of both financial and non-financial areas. And then the move to the probity era. So that's the unannounced visits to perform a series of tests. One of those, an example of that is like the surprise cash check, which our department has done for the past 25 years now. Yeah. Operational audit era was up next, and that saw the widened scope of the work of internal audit to other business function areas such as HR, IT, and so forth. And then came the risk-based audit era. Audit process that starts with understanding the risks faced by the organization in terms of the systems of internal controls. So for those who are not aware, when you're looking at risk, especially from the internal audit perspective, we start out what's the strategic objective, and then what's the inherent risk. What's the risk that is there in an uncontrolled state when there's no controls in place. Once the controls are selected in place, then we calculate what the residual risk is, and that's usually what the risk that's left back after you implement your controls and your mitigation strategies. And presently, we are in the value-driven era, which is the creating, protecting, and sustaining value. And the internal auditor is viewed as a trusted advisor. The IIA, through its foundation, anticipates within the next decade that internal audit profession will undergo major transformation driven by accelerating technological advancements, significant disruptive trends, and emerging risks. This transformation will be characterized by changes in how organizations operate, the need to expand the profession's talent pipeline, and an increase in the profession's capacity and credibility in the eyes of stakeholders to audit new and emerging risks in the public interest, of course. And again, the internal auditor will be seen as a strategic advisor and a catalyst for change. And one of the dramatic transformation that they are anticipating is the 70% increase in advisory focus. So right now, there's been a lot of attention placed on the assurance, which covers more of what is done and so forth. But now we are looking into going to advisory, giving you more present and forward-looking advice, facilitating trainings, and just being there as your fresh pair of eyes, being your partner, not being the police, not being the compliance checker, and all of those negative connotations. So as we strive to be those strategic partners, we hope to continue to collaborate. So if you'd like to hear more about what internal audit will look like within the next decade, you can also look into the Vision 2035 report. So when we say that internal audit is more than a job, it's a profession, three things come out to me in terms of why it's more than a job. Internal audit profession is governed by global standards, as we said. Internal auditing operates within an established framework of globally recognized standards. International Professional Practices Framework, IPPF, which comprises of three components: the Global Internal Audit Standards, Topical Requirements, and Global Guidance. So this structure provides consistency, quality, and accountability across the profession. And what this means also is that if anyone were to pick up our work, they should be able to follow how we did our work, and they should ideally come to the same conclusions. A second reason is the defined ethical principles. The main five are integrity, objectivity, competence, due professional care, and confidentiality. So these principles are what make internal auditors trustworthy, reliable, and credible, both inside and outside of their organizations. A third reason would be internal auditing requires continuing professional development. It's stated in the standards, specifically Standard 3.2, which states internal auditors must maintain and continually develop their competencies to improve the effectiveness and the quality of internal audit services. Internal auditors must pursue continuing professional development, including education and training. What this means here is that internal auditors must personally commit to that continuing professional development. However, the head of internal audit, or the chief audit executive, is there as a supporting role to lobby for those resources to get training. But it's on us individually to also pursue continuing professional development. And then especially in a world that's constantly evolving, we have to stay ahead. We have to stay relevant. We have to learn new tools. We have to learn the new business areas, the cybersecurity, the artificial intelligence, because we not only need to know the internal audit principles and concepts, but we must also have strong business acumen. We must also understand emerging risks and strengthen our skills to add real value. Yes? So for those who have interest in furthering their profession in internal auditing, you can consider a number of globally recognized certifications, which include the Certified Internal Auditor designation, which includes 3 exams, the certification in risk management assurance, so that's now specializing in that area, the internal audit practitioner, which is the entry level before you get to that CIA designation. We also have on the IT side the Certified Information Systems Auditor, which is provided by ISACA, which is the Information Systems Audit and Control Association. And there's also the Certified in Risk and Information Systems Control certification. And finally, what makes internal auditing exciting? Adding value to the organization, solving problems and anticipating risks, making a difference, continuous learning, improving the organization's risk management, being a trusted advisor, broad exposure to the organization. For example, the government of Anguilla has over 30 departments, 6, 7 ministries, and each ministry may have multiple units. So you can be exposed to procurement, you can be exposed to utilities, information security, health, water. The possibilities are endless in terms of that exposure. You get to work with senior leaders, so you also benefit from mentorship. You get exposure and learning to new technologies. The progressiveness of internal auditing is saying that internal audit should be included in the life cycle of a project, onboarding of a new software. So you'll have that seat at the table and get that exposure to the systems firsthand. You're able to do non-repetitive activities. No day is the same. And so we're kind of combating that boring perception. Expanding skills such as communications. So does that sound exciting to you, I hope? No? Okay, we'll try some more. So I'll put a plug in terms of what our contact information is at the end. So if you need me to persuade you a little more, you can just give me a call. But all in all, could internal auditing be your profession? Based on all these things, are you purists? Do you like to adhere to those traditional rules? Are you practical? Do you weigh the options? Yes, it's this, but I have to look at it in the context. Is that you? Are you proactive? And putting all those things together, could this be your profession? Okay, so putting in my plug here. The Internal Audit Department is located at the old police barracks. We know where that is? Yes, most persons. So right next to the HM prison, right next door. You can reach out to us at audit.mailbox@gov.ai. The phone number 1264-497-1241. Thank you for listening, and we now make a shift into our panel discussion. Why internal audit matters, perspectives from the field. So this featured discussion is designed to explore the role of internal audit across sectors with specific perspectives from both financial services regulation and the public sector. We'll hear firsthand why internal audit matters. And at this time, I'd like to put out a disclaimer. Before we dive into the panel discussion, we'd like to share the views and opinions expressed by the panelists are their own and do not necessarily represent the official position of the government of Anguilla, the Anguilla Financial Services Commission, or any other affiliated institution. This discussion is intended to be informative and reflective, and the insights shared will be offered from the perspectives of financial services regulation and public sector internal auditing. While we encourage constructive engagement, please note that probing or inappropriate questions that may compromise the professionalism of this discussion will not be addressed. Any examples referenced are used strictly for illustrative purposes and are not in breach of confidentiality principles, nor do they refer to any specific individuals, organizations, or audit engagements. We appreciate your understanding and ask that all participants engage with respect and in a spirit of learning. Thank you. And now I present Ms. Sharani Carty, CAMS ACI. Ms. Carty currently serves in the position of Deputy Director Supervision at the Anguilla Financial Services Commission. She has a prudential supervisory responsibility for trusts and corporate services providers, offshore banking, money services businesses, investment business, and digital asset business sectors. Ms. Carty also supervises the AFSC's Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Compliance Department, which has oversight of general AML/CFT supervision, including the regulation of externally and non-regulated service providers and non-profit organizations. She works closely with the Commission's legal department in policy development and its administrative department in organizing outreach initiatives. Ms. Carty has almost 20 years of work experience in the financial services industry, which includes working at a commercial bank in Anguilla and a brief secondment with the Isle of Man Financial Services Commission. Ms. Carty holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in economics with a minor in political science from the Zicklin School of Business at Burke College in New York. Since joining the Commission in 2012, Ms. Carty has successfully completed a number of professional development courses in financial services, including an Associate in Captive Insurance designation from the International Center for Captive Insurance Education in collaboration with the University of Vermont, a supervisory and regulatory course for banking supervisors administered by the Bank for International Settlements and the International Monetary Fund, a professional certificate in FinTech from the University of Hong Kong, a certificate in digital money from the Digital Frontiers Institute, and the University Cambridge Judge Bidge School FinTech and Regulatory Innovation Program. Ms. Carty is also a certified anti-money laundering specialist. Welcome, Ms. Carty. And now, Ms. Tamika Fleming, Master Accountancy and Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA. Ms. Tamika Fleming is a dynamic leader currently serving as the Director Internal Audit for the Government of Anguilla since May 2024. In this pivotal role, she is spearheading a transformative agenda within the Internal Audit Department to proactively address emerging risks while focusing on service delivery and best practices to enhance public satisfaction. Known as a change agent, she's advocating for the establishment of enterprise risk management function while acting as a strategic advisor to senior management. With over a decade in internal auditing, Ms. Fleming previously served as a Deputy Director, Internal Audit. In addition to her roles in internal audit, Ms. Fleming gained a significant public sector experience as a Deputy Controller of Inland Revenue from June 2017 to March 2024. During this tenure, she played a critical operational management role, successfully navigating the challenges posed on revenue collection by Hurricane Irma and the COVID-19 pandemic. Her expertise in tax administration was instrumental in the tax reform and implementation of the multi-tax solution MTS, an automated tax administration system that includes customer online portal. Ms. Fleming's passion for public sector reform, governance, risk management, compliance, information technology, accounting, and auditing underscores her commitment to excellence in public service. She holds a Master of Accountancy with a concentration in information systems, audit and control from the Bowling Green State University, along with a Bachelor of Arts in Accounting and Associate of Arts in Business Management from the University of Virgin Islands. She's also a Certified Information Systems Auditor, further demonstrating her dedication to the field and her ongoing professional development. Welcome once again, Ms. Fleming. So now I will begin with a series of guided questions, followed by some time at the end for questions from the audience. Globally, the internal audit function is undergoing transformation. As we would have heard before, traditionally viewed as a checker of financial records and compliance, the internal audit function is evolving to a strategic advisor that provides insight and foresight to help organizations achieve their goals and manage risks. So, Ms. Fleming, my question to you, in your context, have you observed this shift in how internal audit is perceived?
Yes, definitely. I have observed a significant shift in the way that internal audit is perceived within the service and in the profession. It's an exciting time, in my view, to be in the profession because the shift from hindsight, it's the monotony, the checkbox kind of concept is out the door, and it challenges you to really think strategically, think about innovation, innovative ways of doing things, and I can see that the profession continues to evolve in response to the needs of the organization that it serves.
Thank you. And my follow-up question would be, from your perspective, what is the role of the internal audit function today?
The role of the internal audit function, the assurance services would always remain because there is the need to be accountable to the public. So the assurance services that we provide as internal auditors over risk management, governance, and internal controls, and also compliance with laws and regulations to hold accounting officers, elected representatives accountable, that will always remain and be preserved. But I can see that the role continues to evolve, and it is shifting. Even in Anguilla, I can see the need for it to shift to more focus on the assurance services, the advisory side of the services that we can provide, because they will ultimately bring greater value, especially in really championing or really charting the course in this new era of technology, advances in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, all of these risks that and also opportunities that we can capitalize on. It's not limited to, our consideration of risk is not limited to the negative, but actually we also are in a strategic position because we see from the global perspective of the organization. We're not limited to one department, for instance. So our view of the organization is much different than a person sitting in the seat of a head of department of a respective government department, for instance. And that global view helps to give us a broader perspective of things, and we don't have those blind spots that some persons in management might have. So we are in a strategic position to guide the organization as the organization navigates in this new global context.
Thank you. Ms. Carty, in your context, have you observed this shift in how internal audit is perceived?
Certainly, I believe we have seen a shift, as Tamika would have mentioned, from the checkbox approach to a more proactive approach. So we are finding that the service providers are doing whatever possible to ensure that they can identify the threats and vulnerabilities of their businesses, and ensuring that they are putting in place mitigating measures to ensure that the risk is contained. In addition to that, we are also seeing that the less mature and less complex service providers are also upskilling. So they're training their staff and they're trying to get in line. Where I should mention, for the FSC, we do look at internal audit from a AML CFT perspective as well as from a prudential perspective. So that's looking at the financial portion of things, financial stability, as well as the capital and liquidity issues. But today I'll focus more on the AML CFT issue. So that's anti-money laundering and combating of terrorist financing. So for us, when we look at internal audit, the internal audit function from an AML CFT perspective, we are seeing that shift, definitely a shift away from just having a checklist and you're checking off the boxes to ensure that you have X, Y, and Z. So they're doing more in-depth reviews and ensuring that they understand the risk, because when you understand the risk, then you can plan accordingly and you can strategize. Something else that we are also seeing is where the audit function is engaging a lot more in compliance and risk management. So they are having a lot more conversations with the risk management and compliance personnel within the organizations. And obviously, this is because a lot of what internal audit does is identifying the risk that is presented from the operations or the business activities and ensuring that the risk is mitigated. So it's very important for internal audit to have those conversations with the risk management teams, and we are seeing that a lot more collaboration and crossovers with those departments.
Okay, thank you. From your perspective, what is the role of the internal audit function today?
Well, I think that the role of the internal audit function, it is still maintaining that traditional sense. So you have the three lines of defense, so the business line, the risk and compliance line, and then internal audit. So internal audit is the last line of defense, and I don't think that has changed much, although the functions may have evolved because the businesses have evolved. Those three lines of defense are still well defined and clear in any organization, any financial institution. However, I think that a lot more persons are now understanding and appreciating the role and the function of the internal audit departments and personnel. So they are kind of deemed as the police or the regulators. So you kind of can call them on-staff police, on-staff regulators. For us, we appreciate that, because as regulators, we go in and we ensure that your internal audit department is running smoothly, it's effective, and the legislation that governs what the internal audit function should look like. We go in and ensure that you're adhering to the legislation of the requirements which dictates how that function should operate. So we are definitely seeing a greater appreciation within organizations and persons understanding why it is that the internal audit function should be independent, why they should not be commingling or integrated with any other role within the organization. Obviously, later on, we'll get to some instances where there are exceptions to that. But for the most part, I think that the appreciation is there. So they are being able to carry out their functions as they should.
Okay, thank you. So the current, the new standards, the Global Internal Audit Standards, also speaks to relying on collaborating between assurance service providers. So from Ms. Carty's statements, we see how the internal audit function is one assurance service provider, and now the regulator is also an assurance provider. So the regulator needs to satisfy themselves with whether they can rely on the internal audit assurance. Okay. And now on to the next segment of the panel discussion. The collective well-being of the people and entities that internal auditors serve is referred to as the public interest. While internal auditors provide assurance within organizations, their work has broader societal implications. So, Ms. Fleming, in central government, what role does internal audit play in helping to improve public service delivery?
We, as internal audit in central government, our role is, we form part of the 3 lines of defense, as Sharonee would have mentioned, and there are the officers performing the service, then there is the compliance, and it would have some supervisory roles within the organization to verify that things are being done in accordance with the laws, the procedures in place. And the internal audit function would come in as an independent, objective function to evaluate those controls, the risk management, and the governance processes in place. So we have a critical role, and we all report to the oversight body. So we play a very critical role in ensuring accountability and maintaining that level of transparency in how public resources are used and managed, and also in terms of the decision-making process of government, so of the leaders in the tone at the top. We also, I think, more practically, in terms of our work and the way that we do our work, we would ultimately provide recommendations that are actionable, practical, and proactive in some cases to really address the risks facing the organization. So I think in that way, we definitely also help the organization, as I said, to navigate any challenges that it would face. So I think that is how we also support the public interest. Of course, central government, it is a very critical role to be in the central government, because we provide, we're not in this for profit. We're not, it's not light things that we're dealing with. It is critical, essential services for the citizens and residents of the country that we are providing assurance on, that we are monitoring to ensure that they are delivered to a standard that the country, it also determines basically our work feeds into the way of life and the quality of life that citizens experience. So I take it very seriously, our role in that regard, because we hold others accountable, and that is not a light thing. So we have to hold ourselves to a higher account as well, in order for us to really deliver that service to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Carty, from a regulatory standpoint, how does the internal audit function support the safety, stability, and integrity of Anguilla's financial services industry and system?
So for us, when we look at internal audit, we first look at the policies, procedures, systems, and controls that are in place for the institution. So we ensure that they are documented first and foremost, and what is documented is actually being done in practice. And we also check to ensure that they are robust enough to mitigate any AML CFT risk that may be presented. Meanwhile, still adhering to their AML CFT obligations, some of which that touches is very big for internal audit would be record keeping, as well as, like I said, the policies, procedures, systems, and controls. So that trickles down to a lot of other things, such as customer risk assessments, your customer due diligence, going through that process of verifying your customers and knowing who you're transacting with. But other than the policies, procedures, systems, and controls, that trickles down to a few areas. And there are some other overarching areas as well that policies, procedures, systems, and controls will fall under, specifically governance. So I believe that the internal audit department, it helps to strengthen the governance framework of any institution. So we are able to look at the policies that they have in place and ensure that the policies are fit for purpose. Again, going back to their obligations under the AML CFT legislation, ensuring that they comply with those obligations, and to ensure that they strategize and plan accordingly to for any future mishaps. So when they're under any stressed situations, they can address those situations in a timely manner. In addition to that, we find that the internal audit function also helps to flag AML CFT misconduct, either by customers or by employees. Believe it or not, that's a possibility. So the policies and procedures is one thing, the systems and controls one thing, but between all four, there are different tools that may be deployed by the institution to monitor the activities of the customers as well as the employees. But of course, there are tools that are used, technology, but you have to bear in mind that there's information that has to be fed into the tools, as well as humans on the other end that have to analyze the information that comes out from the tools in the form of reports or structured data. So we feel as though that is also important in flagging misconduct, because if you don't have proper monitoring tools in place, then there is a situation that can arise where you have gaps in your operations, and we know that persons like to find loopholes and work their way through those loopholes. So it's important for internal audit to identify where those gaps are, ensure that there are proper monitoring processes and policies in place to pick up, identify any of those issues as it relates to the customer, monitoring the customer activity and transactions. There are institutions that are also looking at generative AI to assist in analyzing the information, because sometimes there's copious amounts of data that takes quite some time to go through, especially if it's not in a structured format. So we do see that some institutions are actually exploring the option of using AI tools to assist in the efficiencies in analyzing that data. So overall, I think that the internal audit department, as it helps to assist the institutions in complying and adhering, first and foremost, with its own policies and procedures, and also with the governing laws, in this case, the AML-CFT legislation.
Thank you. So your contributions would have highlighted how the internal audit function is there to also serve the public interest in the way that our services, whether in the public sector or the private sector, are delivered. And now we move on to our third section, enhancing decision making. Effective governance and risk management are the backbone of any high-performing organization. Internal audit plays a critical role in offering insights into what is working, highlighting what is not, and pointing to what's coming concerning issues surrounding governance and risk management processes. Ms. Fleming, can you share an example of how internal audit has helped to strengthen governance processes or risk mitigation within this public service? And how has that led to more informed or improved decision making?
Thank you. In terms of how the internal audit department has contributed to risk mitigation, strengthening risk mitigation within the public service, and how that has led to more informed or improved decision making. We would have spearheaded in November of last year, we spearheaded a risk management training that involved all of the, a good subsection of the senior management within the public service, where we took them through the process of assessing risks, identifying, categorizing, assessing, and putting mitigation measures in place, and documenting the risk across the life cycle of the risk. So our aim in that initiative was to institute a system of risk management within the public service. And basically, this focus on this basis on risk management would also help to facilitate improved decision making, because documenting your risk and understanding what the risk is and how you can effectively manage it, or by putting certain internal control measures in place, or you might determine that it is within the risk tolerance level of the organization, so it might need to be, it could be accepted. So going through these thought processes and considering it and building a risk awareness culture within the public service is what we wanted to really bud. And we got that started last year. It is an ongoing project. It is not something that is going to happen overnight, but we planted a seed, and we also have observed that some managers are including the discussion of risk and considering it in their meetings, and we're also considering risk and in terms of our budgeting process and how we allocate our resources. Even for us in the internal audit department, we have always had a focus on risk assessments, and we would allocate our resources to the areas of greatest risk. And we have now seen that kind of methodology being applied in other departments. So it's a start. And I think that is one way where we are helping to improve governance and decision making within the public service.
Thank you. And again, risk in the context of internal auditing is any threat to not achieving your goal, or even an opportunity, because risk can be both positive and negative. Ms. Carty, from your perspective, how critical is internal audit in helping financial institutions make risk-based decisions?
So I know that this is something that we hear a lot when we visit healthcare professionals, as it relates to chronic diseases. They usually say early detection. Early detection leads to timely intervention. I think that is also applicable to the work that we do in compliance and risk management. And I think that the role of internal audit, it's the first stop, one of the first stops in risk management, identifying your risk and planning accordingly. The internal audit function operates in such a way where it's kind of meant to save the institution on resources and time. And when you make decisions that are heavily involving risk, certain risks that you have to take. I know Tamika mentioned your risk appetite, what your risk tolerance levels look like. If you do not know what risk is involved in your operations, then it's very difficult for you to plan accordingly. If you have not identified the risk that may impact the business, then you are just blindly making decisions. So the internal audit department actually, or the internal audit function, it assists in identifying what the risk is. So I mentioned that it helps to save the institution resources and time in identifying any gaps. And I spoke about policies, procedures, systems, and controls. So going back to that, there's a review that the FSC would usually conduct. I say a review, but it's inspections that we usually conduct. And we check to see how the internal audit function is operating. But separate and apart from that, we also look at your policies, procedures, systems, and controls to see how effective they are. And the internal audit function is almost like that pre-check before the regulator comes in. So if you have an effective and working internal audit function, when the regulator comes in, you should have a near clean bill of health. If you do not have a near clean bill of health, then you need to probably look at what is the guiding document or the scoping work for the internal audit function within your organization. It could be that they may need to do more. They're not looking at the right risk areas. And this all leads to the organization eventually making certain decisions. If they do not analyze the risk properly, it can eventually lead to reputational damage. It can lead to loss of business, loss of customers, loss of relationships. It can also lead to legal action. So it's very important for organizations to know what risk may be presented from doing X, Y. And if you do X, Y, what happens next? Are we able to manage what's happening next? So that is very important. And I should also mention that, in addition to the reputational damage, and not to scare any of our service providers, but they should know this, but other than the reputational damage and legal action that may come about as a result of having these gaps and not analyzing your risk properly, when the FSC, God forbid the FSC comes in and does an inspection and our findings reveal gross deficiencies, the FSC has a range of disciplinary action that it can take. And I just wanted to briefly mention, although you don't really see that happening in Anguilla and in the region, a most recent case in the US where TD Bank, which is one of the largest banks in the US, I think top 10 largest banks in the US, was recently fined about $3 billion by their regulator, which is FinCEN. So FinCEN did an inspection and they realized that there was gross deficiencies in their AML CFT program, specifically in the monitoring of customer transactions and the reporting or their failure to report suspicious activity. And that suspicious activity that they failed to report was linked and connected to human trafficking cases. So it just goes to show you what can be the result, the consequences of not having a proper internal audit function rule. But the kicker in this situation, though, is that the internal audit department did flag these issues. The regulator also flagged the issues. The problem was at the top. So the top, meaning the board, they failed to rectify those issues. So you see what ultimately happened there. So just wanted to point that out.
Yes, thank you. That's a very powerful example. And it underscores the importance of governance, setting the tone at the top, the culture, the soft elements, the regard for policy. There might be a policy, a physical document, tangible, but is it actually implemented? When last was it revised? Is it monitored in terms of the effectiveness? Is it delivering the intended outcomes? All of these things. We don't just set it and forget it. So we have to also implement, and we have to monitor, and we have to evaluate. It's a lot, but from the perspective of if much is given, much is also required. Yes. And now we move on to the segment, Building and Sustaining Effective Internal Audit Functions. This would have been coming out through the conversations. The effectiveness of the internal audit function depends not only on the competency of the internal auditors, but on the support and independence of the function. A well-resourced independent internal audit function is more likely to deliver timely assurance, add value, and serve the public interest. Ms. Fleming, what strategies has the department used to maintain independence and credibility while still maintaining strong relationships with internal stakeholders?
Yes, in terms of independence of the function, we have our reporting structure. We report to the audit committee, which is the oversight board for our body for the internal audit function, and it is chaired by the deputy governor, as we established. So that forms part of the independence in terms of our structure. We are also positioned in the organization where we are positioned. We are a separate department, and we are able to, through our charter, it's set out that we can determine our scope, our methodology, in terms of what areas we want to audit, or what areas where we see the risks are positioned, and we have the freedom to conduct our work in that regard. So we also operate in accordance with the global internal audit standards and the ethical principles in accordance with the profession. So those things, those structures help to preserve our independence. In terms of our credibility, we, as I said in the mission and the vision, we are building the competency of our team. And we are also looking to see how we can use our technology, the technology and innovations available to continue to build the credibility. We are also building partnerships, as I indicated in the vision for the department. Our partnerships also help to build our credibility because we're able to share different experiences, challenges, ideas, and actually come up with solutions through our partnerships. So we capitalize on our people, our partnerships, and our innovation in terms of maintaining our credibility. And of course, quality is what we ascribe to. In terms of building and maintaining strong relationships with senior management, that is something that we have open lines of communication, of course. We engage them to gain an understanding of the organization. We have to be knowledgeable and aware of the mandate of the various departments and ministries. We have to be aware of their objectives and what is critical for them. So we have those ongoing conversations to assess the risks and establish our work plan. But beyond that, we also have to maintain a level of objectivity and independence from the organization that we serve, because that is how we maintain our credibility and our independence. So it's a bit of an interesting situation. So in that regard, as internal auditors, we have to exercise professional courage in how we report our findings. We have to maintain objectivity. No matter who's involved, if it's a family member or somebody, a close friend, we have to report the facts. And that takes courage in some cases. We have to be independent in our expression of our professional judgment and use the professional skepticism in everything, maintain a questioning mind, and we must not allow anybody else to influence our judgments. So in maintaining those relationships, it's a bit of an interesting situation, but it makes the job so much more interesting.
Thank you. It's definitely an interesting job. I agree. Ms. Carty, what expectations does the supervisory authority have for the structure, independence, and resourcing of the internal audit function within regulated institutions? And what good practices have you observed?
So our expectations are always, first, I don't want to sound like is the practical what was before the practical, the purist. I don't want to sound like the purist, but we first and foremost look at legislation, what legislation requires. Mm-hmm. And as it relates to AML, CFT, internal audit for AML, CFT purposes, it's not prescriptive. So what we look at is the size, the complexity, and the significant importance, the systemic importance, of the institution. Mm-hmm. So the internal audit function is required, yes, but it may look different depending on what the size of the organization is. So also the industry sometimes. So if it's a small two-man operation, then we know it may not make sense for them to go out and hire internal audit just to do internal audit work, Mm-hmm. So it may be that you separate the duties. You have one person within the office doing the internal audit functions, but they must not be involved in any compliance-related work or any work in developing the policies and procedures. They may also opt to outsource the function. So that's an option. However, ultimate liability still lies with the organization, with the institution. And, we also would review the arrangements to ensure that the parameters or the terms and conditions that govern that arrangement ensures that the third party understands the AML CFT obligation as it relates to internal audit. Obviously, for the larger, more complex organizations, we tend to see like a more mature understanding of the internal audit function. So they have well-staffed and resourced units. Some of them may not, and they're getting there, but either way, it's a bit different, whereas you may have one person doubling up, but in these organizations, you actually have multiple persons working within the department. So the expectations of the structure of the internal audit function, it differs accordingly. But in any case, we need to ensure that they have sufficient resources to get the job done. In addition to that, so sufficient resources to get the job done all depends on the board. How does the board see the internal audit function? Do they appreciate the work and appreciate what the internal audit function does? As a matter of fact, for us, the internal audit function is the responsibility of the board. So they have direct oversight of the internal audit function. So again, setting the tone from the top. So we task the board with the responsibility of ensuring that that culture of understanding and appreciating internal audit within the organization is coming from them and trickling down to management and then to frontline staff. So again, going back to well-resourced, obviously the board would be responsible for approving any resourcing needs for the different departments. So ensuring that the board understands what the mandate of the department is, their work, and making sure that they make, wherever necessary, the resources available and the tools available for them to do their work. Encouraging that management of the different departments are cooperative, not just during the audit processes, but also after. Because as Tamika mentioned, there are reports that come from these audits, and there may be recommendations and actionable items. So ensuring that the board stays on the neck of these different managers in the different departments to get the job done within the specified time frame. So just overall, understanding and appreciating the function. And the good practices that we've observed recently, I think that, again, there's a better understanding of what the internal audit function means and what the staff of the internal audit department or unit does. That is increasing, and I think that may be as a result of awareness training. So they are conducting training not only to the department, but to all staff, company-wide, to ensure that they understand how they can assist the department and then what the department does. As well, I think that they are gaining a better appreciation for the function through lessons learned. So from their experience in dealing with matters that arise that should have been captured by the internal audit function. So, the shoulda, coulda, woulda, that kind of thing. So I think that is also fueling the appreciation and understanding of the internal audit function. So I think in addition to that as well, I can mention that the reports that we are seeing, because when we do our inspections, we try to understand how does the internal audit department go about scoping their work, what their work looks like, the frequency of their audits, and we also look at their reports. And I think in recent times, we are seeing reports that are more comprehensive. They are thoroughly identifying the issues. They are looking at key risk. So not just saying, okay, because we do this one in a while, we're going to look at this area within the organization. They're looking at the areas where there's significant risk, and they're ensuring that they drill right down to the end to understand what's happening there, what are the issues, how to rectify the issues. So the reports are more thorough, and I think they are more aggressive in ensuring that the different departments comply with the recommendations that are set out within the audit report. So those are some things that we are seeing positive, but of course, where there's good, there's also bad. So you still have a select few that are still trying to, come up to speed with understanding and appreciating how important that function is. And it's more so the smaller organizations. So you expect that because, right, so that's the first thing they're going to look at, the cost. But they too need to understand that the work can get done without spending a dime, You just have to get creative and try to find different ways and means of ensuring that it can get done with what you have. So I spoke about the two-man shop and how you go about getting it done, but with two persons, in-house. So those are some of the things that we're seeing as well.
Thank you. And that also alludes to the flexibility and also the option to institute mitigating measures and controls in place just to have that separation of duties. So although we are constrained, we can look at other creative ways, as you say, to achieve the goal. And now we bring a close to the panel discussion. So in one sentence, why does internal audit matter today more than ever?
I didn't want to leave anything out, so I wrote this one down. Internal audit matters today more than ever because internal audit is your strategic partner, providing essential oversight, insight, and foresight, enhancing organizational resilience, and ensuring accountability in an increasingly complex and risk-prone environment.
Okay. that was a loaded sentence.
And my sentence is a bit shorter, a lot shorter, and more direct. So with everything being so interconnected these days, the fallout from inadequate checks and balances will be widespread and heartfelt.
Yes.
So,
Thank
direct
you.
and to the point.
Yes. Thank you. So now we welcome questions from the audience. Any questions?
First, let me say a very good presentation, both Kamika and Sharonay, a very well presented session. For the person who said that audit is boring, I believe that person would have thought about financial auditing because it's actually boring. Internal audit now is a different cup of tea because internal audit is so exciting, it becomes you. You take on the personality. I am still an internal auditor, I'm retired so long, but I am still an internal auditor. So you take on the personality, you guys will have the personality after a year or two or so. But it's the person confused internal auditing with the auditing of financial statements. I'm quite sure of that. In addition to that, you guys need to let people know how much you have to go through, because as internal auditors, you have to familiarize yourself with all the legislation governing the varying departments. You got to know what governs the Department of Social Development, because when you go in there, you got to know your stuff. So you can't go saying, I believe. You got to know, you got to present to them, the law says this, and this is what has to be done. My concern, though, comes from risk management. I don't know if it's a misperception from my part, but to me, risk identification and risk management is for the department. Internal auditor's role is to facilitate that, because everybody don't know how to look at risk and how to manage risk. So internal audit would be facilitating a risk management plan, and then have the department, because you need to involve the members, because you don't work in finance or those other departments. So they themselves have to identify the risk and the controls and give themselves a time frame to mitigate and things like that, because they will have to know what they are about. But you have to facilitate that. And then, because if you identify the risk, if you give them the plan, you cannot audit the plan. And that's what you are responsible for, auditing the risk management plans. So that's all I have to say on this front. And I reiterate, it's the external auditing they were speaking about.
Thank you for that contribution, Ms. Ritchie.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this excellent initiative. I think that the Internal Audit Department really did a good job in terms of bringing awareness to what you do. And I think based on what I've heard here today, the remit is quite large. I know there's been quite a stress in terms of risk management, risk throughout. Obviously, you would have to take a risk-based approach in terms of how you go about your entire initiative, considering, and as I heard, I think it was some 30 departments, am I correct, Giselle? But trying to understand, maybe you can give me a little bit more, a better appreciation for how you actually identify and possibly construct your work program or your work plan in terms of being able to focus on particular areas. I think just to give us a high-level approach or understanding really as to where that focus would be, considering that remit is so large and it is so many departments, and your staff really is you know, not, I don't want to use the word small, but very resourceful, so that is key.
We would definitely have to capitalize on a risk-based methodology to determine which areas we would audit in a particular period. So we would conduct a risk assessment, which usually involves asking a series of targeted questions to the various department heads and managers across the service, and then consolidating the information that we find that we get. It might be like the challenges, the various maybe new projects, major changes coming on board that would impact on the delivery of a particular service or function, or the fulfillment of the mandate of a particular department. So we would consider the impact of the risks on the accomplishment of the strategic objectives of a particular department. But how we try to accomplish coverage, to achieve like a reasonable coverage, is we have first started to look at those more pervasive areas across the service. So like the processes and systems that affect multiple areas. So it might be like procurement process, some HR related issues, some payroll, like a system that affects everyone that would have more far-reaching implications in terms of, I'm just giving examples, but we would start there, and then as we would come across more endemic problems, and we could drill down to those specific issues. But our approach has been to look at the more global, far-reaching processes and systems to then be able to diagnose some of the issues. That's been our approach to manage with our, I want to say, I'm going to say limited and small. We do the most with what we have. There is a quotation, do more with less. Yeah? We've been operating in a period of austerity for quite a while, so we work with what we have and we make the best of what we have. So that's how we have approached it in recent times.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Can we go based on Tina's question? I don't know if it's written out so but auditing is based on hearing. It comes from hearing and listening. And initially, the plan would have been stability. Anything you hear there on the street.
Yes.
Is that still a consideration?
Of course, because that could have reputational risk. That could introduce other risks, and it could be a red flag for something else that is a bigger problem. So we do consider those. We always listening. We are the watchdogs, and we're listening. Listeners. Yeah, we're paying attention.
Any further questions? Yes.
I didn't hear much or anything further in relation to, I don't want to use the word threat or challenges, but how do you see the incorporation of AI into your functions that you're doing? I was sort of skeptical of speaking because I had made Ms. Fleming a promise in relation to the workshop that we had in November, and I was a bit guilty because I have not lived up to my commitment. So I was sort of skeptical of speaking. But I haven't heard much in relation, except for what Ms. Carty spoke about. So do you perceive any incorporation of AI in your functions, especially in terms of Ms. Fleming's role and department?
Okay, so thank you for that question. Seeing that I would have raised it in one of my comments, just to reiterate what I said. So what we're seeing is that service providers are exploring the option of using generative AI in the work that they do. So again, what that means is that instead of having a human sit and filter through information that is not structured. So when I say information that's not structured, you don't know what it's representing, where it's coming from. It's just mumble jumble. So when you have technology like AI that can organize that information and put it in a structured format where you can gain insights from, and you can actually tell a story from the information. So that's what I mean, where a human may take 7 days to go through that information, AI can take seconds. So you can see that the processes are more efficient when you introduce technology. So that's just an example of how that's happening. And then you have AI in monitoring tools as well. So once I don't want to get too technical, but with AI, there's machine learning. And once you teach the machine what to look for, what to read for, when they see certain transactions happening. So let's say, for instance, if there is and I think most systems work this way, if there is a transaction that's happening and it is outside of the scope of what the customer says they are doing, then the system flags it. So that's not really AI, but that's understanding that there's some sort of learning to the systems and tools in that they know or understand what one customer should be doing, but it goes against what they're actually doing. So it throws off red flags, and then there's alerts and reports and that sort of stuff, right? So, but then you have where AI is introduced, it takes it a step further. So it will flag it, but then it may do something else. So instead of the human getting involved, you may have that it's flagging the transaction and then blocking the transaction, or flagging the transaction, blocking the transaction, and sending an email to the relevant person within the organization to follow up or something of that sort. Or it may even go the step further to search the World Wide Web to see if they can find information to support maybe the transaction or the person that they're conducting the transaction with. So it's getting creative. AI can be used for so many different ways. I know a lot of persons are concerned with whether the use of AI would remove that human element, and I absolutely don't think so. I think you still need that objective view, because the systems are taught to learn something a certain way, but that does not necessarily mean that's how the information should be read all the time. So humans will still need to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
We would definitely have to be careful about using AI because there are certain built-in biases as well, and we need not allow AI to make our professional judgments, especially in this field. So definitely the human element will remain, but we have to explore as a civil service, as the government of Anguilla, how we are going to capitalize on the benefits and the efficiencies that the use of AI does bring to the table. We are definitely looking to see how we can utilize the new technologies in the way that we do what we do to get results to our clients faster. You know, I definitely see a lot of opportunities in the way that we do our work and how it could help. So that's something that I am personally looking to explore, and I think that there are even certifications coming out about how to audit AI and these kinds of things, auditing culture, auditing cyber security. So these are the new areas, and as Heather said, it's not a boring field at all. I mean, when you talk about auditing AI and cybersecurity and all of these things, it's so much to learn. And we, as internal auditors and being those strategic partners, we actually have to be at the forefront of this. So we have to learn ahead of everybody else, and that's what we're trying to do. So you're going to be hearing more about AI because Anguilla, after all, is the home of .ai.
Yes. Thank you for that response. Also, for those who are interested in auditing AI, ISACA recently released that certification. Okay. Any other questions?
The students? Thank you.
Okay. Seeing that there are no further questions, before we head into the vote of thanks, I'd just like to highlight the internal auditors in the room. So beyond our staff, we have Delta, of course, long-standing member, internal auditor. We have Dorrit Gums, internal auditor. We have Jimmy Granu Harrigan, internal auditor. We also have Twana Van Hennigan Duncan, internal auditor. She's at Social Security Board. There was also Chanel Reed. She left. She's the internal audit manager at Anglic. She also has Lakeisha Proctor. She's Proctor Hughes. Yes, she's the internal auditor as well as at Anglic. And
We have some tax auditors in the room.
yes, we have tax auditors in the room. A distinct area, but still some disciplines and principles apply. Yes, Clean Lake and Leslie Gums. And not in the room, but still within our department, Shawba Hughes, Senior Internal Auditor. And we also have experienced Internal Auditor, Mrs. Elvery Vanterpool. Yes. Okay, now I welcome Dorit to provide the vote of thanks. Thank you to our panelists.
Good evening. I would like to adopt the protocol that has already been established. It is my distinct pleasure to express appreciation on behalf of the Internal Audit Department to all who have contributed to today's event and to the development of the internal audit function over the years. We are deeply grateful to the current audit committee, comprising the Deputy Governor, Mr. Perrin Bradley, the PS Finance, Ms. Marissa Hardin Hodge, and Acting PS Home Affairs, Ms. Shamika Hodge, for their insight and guidance. We are also grateful to our past audit committee members, directors, and staff for their invaluable contributions. A special thank you goes to our current management and staff for their unwavering commitment, professionalism, and dedication to the internal audit mandate. We sincerely thank Ms. Janisha Johnson for opening in prayer and for her support in organizing this event. We are especially grateful to the Honorable Premier, Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge, and the Deputy Governor, Mr. Perrin Bradley, for their timely and insightful remarks, which helped set the tone for this afternoon's engagement. We acknowledge Ms. Delta Hodge for delivering a reflective and inspiring account of the history of the Internal Audit Department. To Ms. Sharon A. Carty, our panelists, thank you for sharing your insight and expertise during the discussion. Our gratitude also goes to the Director of Internal Audit for her powerful presentation on the strategic vision for the department and for serving as a panelist, and to the Deputy Director for her introduction, presentation on the profession, and moderation of the panel. Their leadership in organizing today's event is commendable. We also extend thanks to the Department of Education and the principal of the ALHCS for accommodating us here at Campus Q. We also acknowledge the support of the Anguilla Titanium Audio Visual and Dites for providing live streaming and technical support, Umami for the refreshments, Ms. Jemmy Grano for the beautiful decor, Mr. Nasheen Johnson for capturing today's moments. And finally, to each of you who joined us, both in person and online, we thank you for being part of this milestone event. We trust it has been insightful, meaningful, and thought-provoking. For those here with us physically, we now invite you to stay, connect, and enjoy some light refreshments as we continue to build relationships in support of a more resilient and accountable public service. Thank you.
Thank you again all for joining us. We have refreshments at the back, light refreshments. You can indulge and connect as Dorit would have indicated. Thank you once again.